Hey guys, it's Daniel, and this is my episode review of episode 12 of Power Rangers Dino SuperCharge, Catching Some Rays. So the episode basically starts out at the Dino Bike Cafe, where Kendall's G-Ma Betty visits the museum and tries to be as helpful as she can, helping out Koda and Tyler with the faucet issue, and also just wanting to help Kendall as much as possible, and Kendall really isn't having it. She's trying her best once again to make some connection with the Silver Ranger to see how she could help him. G-Ma Betty gifts Kendall with this giant lens that she found and gives it to her to put in the museum. Koda actually recognizes the lens from somewhere and quickly asks Kendall and the rest of the Rangers to go to a specific cave near Amber Beach that he just remembered. Keep in mind, he was a caveman, he's been frozen for a very long time, so it's kind of a miracle that he remembers something like that. So what ends up happening is that the Rangers basically visit a cave that Koda actually lived in. Quite interesting that it's so close to Amber Beach. And there they find all these different drawings on the cave from Koda and his family members. Koda seemed very close to his grandfather. One of the things that Briley noticed as well in the cave is this corridor blocked by rocks, and Koda basically explained that he was never allowed to go past there when he was younger. So of course Koda ends up being convinced to cross over the little rock path blocking the cave. He walks in along with the other Rangers. Nothing happens, but of course some of the Rangers discover a giant bone blocking this whole pile of rocks in this other corridor of the cave. By them moving the bone, something happens. A large spirit comes flying out of the rocks, lands, and we get our monster of the episode called Leisure. The Rangers catch up to her and they automatically have a battle where the Rangers are all defeated, and out of nowhere Leisure jumps and goes into space and summons the power of the sun. The Rangers ask Koda what was going to happen next, since there were pictures of a similar looking monster in Koda's cave. As the monster begins to launch her giant fire beam from the sun, Koda remembers and jumps into safety with Kendall, while the other Rangers get hit by the beam. This beam has the power to make humans very, very lazy to the point of starvation and being inactive. Kendall and Koda quickly escape with the help of some ponchos that she had to block out these sun rays. The rays are basically affecting everyone in Amber Beach, so to find out some type of a solution, Kendall and Koda go back to the command center and attempt to figure something out based off of the pictures that Kendall took in Koda's cave. We are introduced to Leisure's twin brother named Loafer, who's actually with Heckle at the moment. Heckle is very confused as to why there is a monster that looks exactly like Loafer battling the Rangers, and he explains that it's actually his twin sister. So Heckle basically wants Loafer to go down and battle the Rangers and attempt to steal their energems while most of the team is lazy and probably won't really fight them for it. Poisandra and Curio hear the news, and they go on a side mission by themselves without telling Heckle to attempt to steal the energems. While Koda and Kendall are in the lab, the other Rangers basically do all these random things, like Chase jumping a skateboard over a couple of the Rangers on the floor and riding their bikes, or in the case of Tyler, riding a unicycle. They quickly meet up with Poisandra and Curio riding their bikes next to them, joining in on their loafing. And then it ends with a bunch of the Rangers dressed up in swimsuits dancing with Poisandra and Curio. So once again, this seems so far like another filler episode, but like the other filler episodes that I've watched so far this past season, it seems to be going through a humorous route, which to me makes the filler episode a lot more entertaining. Kendall and Koda have either found or created some type of a device to connect the giant lens to, thinking that it will help them reverse the sun's rays effect on Amber Beach. All this information was based off of the writings in Koda's cave, but so far there's no luck in it working. Kendall wants to enlist the help of her G-Mom Betty, even though they sort of had a spat earlier on in the episode. During all the scenes with the other Rangers being lazy, Poisandra and Curio attempt to steal the energems, but of course fail. We go to another battle scene with Fury and Loafer, where they attempt to steal the energems as well, and notice Poisandra and Curio, who weren't necessarily invited to Earth to battle for Heckle. Back at the Dino Bike Cafe, we see G-Mom Betty helping out in a swamped restaurant filled with lazy people, and Kendall, aka Miss Morgan, asks Grandma Betty for help. They repair their relationship as well as the problem with the lens. They realize they need a secondary lens on the device in order for the device to work. They basically try out the lens and it affects everybody at the Dino Bike Cafe, making everybody much more active again. So, of course, Kendall attempts to devise a plan now to affect everybody at Amber Beach. He asks Coda to go out and attempt to find the Rangers and destroy the monster. Coda is, of course, protected with a hat, a poncho, and glasses. So Coda morphs and attempts to fend off Fury and Loafer by himself. Of course, Coda, being the only Ranger battling Fury and the monster, is completely overpowered. The Rangers come by to help him, but they don't really help him. They just morph and join Loafer in a hula dance while Coda attempts to battle Fury. Kendall flies the Plesio Zord into space to battle Leisure. She transforms her Zord into the Plesio Charge Megazord, quickly destroys Leisure, takes the lens in the Megazord's hand, and faces it towards the sun for the sun's beams to go through the lens onto Earth to make the rest of the people on Earth who are lazy not lazy anymore. And of course it works, and the Rangers wake up from the trance and quickly help Coda battle Loafer and Fury. They destroy Loafer and scare away Fury. The most important scene happens at the end, where we go to the command center and Miss Morgan is speaking to the Silver Ranger as well as Keeper and the other Rangers, and this time we get some more interesting information. The Silver Ranger explains that somebody has gotten their hands on the Dark Energem, which is basically an evil counterpart to the other 10 Energems. He also explains that he can destroy it, but in order to do it, he needs the data from the Rangers' Zords and Megazords. Kendo quickly looks around at the Rangers, and most importantly Keeper. Keeper basically explains it's the only way of giving him the help that he needs. So, even though she thought about it, and there could be consequences, and this could just be one big evil scheme, and he may not be the actual Silver Ranger, she agrees to send the Megazord battle, and the episode ends there. Once again, we get another filler episode, and it's a bizarre filler episode. This time around, the monsters are as weird as ever. Loafer and Leisure. I find it a little bit weird how this monster is basically different things that you would find on a day at the beach, like there's surfboards attached to Loafer and Leisure, an ice cream cone, palm tree, like all these modern day things, but yet there were carvings of these monsters in Coda's cave. I feel like the writers should have chose a different monster in order to represent the monster that was stuck in Coda's cave, instead of these monsters, which are basically all made up of things that were created thousands upon thousands of years later. I find it quite hilarious how we got to see the Rangers dancing with Poisandra and Curio, and then hula dancing with Loafer. I think those were definitely the highlight scenes of this episode because they were so ridiculous and funny. I sort of like how they're taking some of the silly parts of the Sentai footage and putting it in there, even if they could just write around the footage. We got introduced by Kendall's grandma, but I don't think she's going to be used further than this episode. This basically was a Coda episode, but Coda really didn't progress too much. We look back at his ancestry and he acknowledges his ancestry. We just maybe see possibly a more intelligent Coda. He's been speaking clearer English, but that's, I guess, a natural transition between different episodes. The Silver Ranger transmissions are basically the only thing that is moving the plot forward with these past 3 filler episodes besides Gone Fishing. This time around, we finally get introduced to the idea of the Dark Energem, and the Silver Ranger explains that he needs help and that somebody's found the Dark Energem. I don't know if the Silver Ranger is to be trusted. The Silver Ranger could be anyone, and I would have asked for the Silver Ranger to take off his mask or demorph before sending over the Megazord data. You know, that's so important. Keeper is finally being used in these episodes in a good way, I suppose, for his knowledge on everything Energem. I loved seeing Poisandra and Curio riding the bikes with the Rangers. I thought that was just a hilarious scene. What I appreciate with Dino SuperCharge so far is just the monsters and the way they interact with the Rangers. And I just think that's what's making these filler episodes interesting. I'm just sort of upset so far with this season and how there really isn't a focus on any long-running plot besides finding the Energems, defeating Heckle, and the Silver Ranger interactions. It's sort of frustrating that since the mid-season premiere, we've had the 3 episodes that are fillers and the one that was significant significant, and I understand they have to stretch it out, but I feel like it's getting ridiculous. I'm hoping the Silver Ranger arrives eventually, and the Rangers get some more character development. I'm only being more harsh on this episode because we've been getting these episodes, but it's getting to the point now where I feel like I need to comment on how there's a lot of filler episodes, and they're funny, and I appreciate the humor, but you know, we need to see the story progress. In the future, these episode reviews will be more so reviews and not analysis of the plot so much. I decided to condense these episode reviews a little bit more. Overall, this episode did entertain me. It was funny. It was interesting to get a Coda focus episode and sort of a Kendall focus episode as well, with her whole grandma subplot going on. And it was just really interesting to see where Coda was raised, even though it wasn't necessarily realistic. Overall, I'd give this episode a 2 out of 5. It was entertaining, but once again, it was another filler episode, and I really, out of a filler episode, I feel like they should be taking advantage by all this extra episode space they have and focus it on a character. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. Also, if you want to see more Dino SuperCharge reviews, please click the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. And you guys can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at blackandblue572. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye!